Mm, Welcome. It is Monday in this time and place. It is whatever time and place it is for you. Before we get into the Hug Nation, let's get present. Shake off whatever thoughts are plaguing you today, whatever things are dragging on you, whatever to-do list. Just try to be present. Become aware of how free the present is. If you can shake off all the stories, if you can shake off all the paths to here and all the things to do, and the present just is. And nothing is wrong, and nothing is undone, and nothing is late, and nothing is there that can give you any anxiety at all. The present just is. And so we become aware of our bodies, the sensations, the sounds. We try to remember this feeling and remember this place can be returned to anytime the stories, the anxiety, and the to-do list get so much that we're actually living in a future, living in a past, and having pain and suffering while the perfect now rambles on, rolls on without us. So we sink into this now and have a moment of gratitude for this blank slate that we can bring into whatever thoughts and stories bring us joy. Thank you, universe, for all these blessings. Amen. Welcome! Welcome to HugNation. I am Halcyon. This is another fantastic gathering. I'm saying that even before we've really gotten started, because I am predicting the future. Today I wanted to talk about news and media and trusting and being critical and when to trust what's inside versus when to trust what's outside. And there's a few things that made me kind of focus on this topic this week. Every once in a while it feels like the online media just starts to just get out of control. And I guess media is always out of control, but there's been a trend recently there's so many of these online websites, and it's so competitive to try to get eyeballs, to try to get people just to click, to show up the ads and top 10 things that are on top 10 lists and top 10 funniest animals, top 10 crazy things. And what you realize, and it's been very clear to me because I've been on a few of these top 10 lists, like top 10 reasons why ravers were cooler in 10 years ago than now, or top 10 weird pictures recreated from childhood pictures. There's strange pictures from my past a bit included in those things. And so first I saw it on BuzzFeed, and then it was on some other link bait site, and then another link bait site. And so these sites just regurgitate. I mean, the original content wasn't original. It was taken off other sites. So people just made an article pulling things from other sites, and then it's been included on 6, 7, 8 other sites, at least, that I've actually had people send to me and go, is this you? Is this you? Is this you? I'm like, yep, another site picked that up. And so there's this, and that's just the raw entertainment aspect of just these lists of funny pictures. That's not that harmful. But what you also see happening is people reprinting articles and not doing any sort of investigation or any sort of double checking, not even checking Snopes to see if it's true or not. And so I keep seeing these articles popping up with these crazy photos that go with them, and having friends of mine or people that are connected to on Facebook or other sites going, oh my God, check this out, this is incredible, whoa, and they re-link that article. And just in the last 3 or 4 days, I've seen, I saw a link to something that's saying that Samsung is paying their legal debt. They had a debt, an award through a court case. They owed Apple $1 billion, and so they paid it in nickels with this picture, which happens to be pennies. And it was, I saw it, a few people linking to it, like, no way, that's not legal. And there's a whole article that makes it sound, like it's a real story. But if you do some searching online or look at Snopes or try to figure out, like, no, that did not happen. And in fact, $1 billion in nickels would be almost all the nickels in circulation, which would be quite an undertaking. That would take probably more than $1 billion to orchestrate that kind of currency collection. But whatever. Then I also saw this article that kept popping up with different headlines, but one of them was like, massive 2-ton turtle found in Amazon, all these things like that with this picture. And clearly this is a photo from, well, maybe it's not clear, but it is not a real turtle. It is from some movie, some Godzilla-ish type movie. But I saw several people linking to it, and it's, and relinking it. And the one that I've seen the most lately is this article about I think a Chinese man sued his wife because they had ugly children. And the lawsuit stated that because she had so much plastic surgery before they met, that she tricked him into thinking that she was beautiful and had beautiful genetics, and then their kids came out, and so he sued and won. That was what the article said. And actually that article was posted just in the last week in the New York Post, and so of course everyone's relinking it. Now, I did a little searching online and found out that story, the original story, is over 10 years old and has been surfacing every once in a while online as people get tricked again and again and again. And I bring all these up partially to let people know that, come on, if something is just wild and crazy and amazing, it's okay to look at the article and be, that's amazing, but if you're going to make the decision, go, I need to share this, I need to let the world know this, and it's too crazy to be true, maybe just search for it online and see if it is true. Because it's really a dangerous thing when we just share, because we are a culture that takes a headline, doesn't read the article, and then shares it and comes up in conversation, and it taints you. That's why politics is so horrific, is because people don't take the time to read the article or learn about what's actually happening or learn about like a candidate's history. They see a headline and go, oh, I didn't read the whole thing. I just can tell from the headline and the picture that that guy's a scumbag. And that's just the most grotesque example of how things are messed up. The other thing to keep in mind is that, and that's within the realm of like blogging and the internet, which is ideally and theoretically and idealistically would be our savior, because here's finally these unique voices that are not bound to this horribly kind of corrupted media system that our traditional media structure has been kind of taken over with. As there's this, you may have seen the graphic in many different ways, but there's like 6 companies that control almost all of the media. This little graphic here says, in 1983, 90% of American media was owned by 50 companies. But by 2011, that same 90% is controlled by 6 companies: GE, News Corp, Disney, Viacom, Time Warner, and CBS. And when they say media, that means news as well as entertainment, which means that unless these companies are run by evolved philosopher kings, there is an inherent bias, no matter what, in these systems. In the same way that if somebody places an advertisement in a magazine, any magazine worth its salt, is that a term? Worth its weight, any real magazine will put a little thing at the top that says advertisement, or at the bottom advertisement, so that you don't leverage the trust that you have in the journalism and assign that trust to the advertisement, because the advertisement traditionally is not held to a standard that journalism traditionally was. But when you have this interconnected where advertisers and journalists are all working for the same people, an editor or somebody trying to sell things or someone trying to worry about the bottom line, you can't help but have that bias. The book Freakonomics shows how even if you are not conscious of it, there's just so many factors that are influencing bias and motivate people to make choices and things. And so just knowing that mainstream media is overwhelmingly corrupted by this interconnectedness through business connections and business ties and corporate intertwining and ownership and all of these things. And then independent media is not bound by the same sort of journalistic standards. So you've got bias and then you've got non-accountability. And so if you believe that it's important to stay up to date on the news, you have to kind of have a filter that says everything that I'm taking in that I have not experienced, everything that I am ingesting through news, however you want to define that, whether it's Blogger or Fox News, all of those things need to be taken lightly and understood the context in which it's coming to, and understand the bias and understand what's that person's agenda. Everybody has an angle in everything they do. As I'm speaking today, I've got some desires. One, I want to be liked, and I want to, to entertain you, and I want to share my perspective, and I also, want to get my things off my chest, and I also want to feel better. Whatever. I'm just making these things up. I haven't thought this through. I'm not sure what my actual desires are. But understanding the bias and the motivation behind each voice is critical. There is no such thing as a just totally raw information. The only way to have totally raw information is through experience. And then we filter it through our own bias. And a lifetime of searching and seeking and growth is about trying to figure out what that bias is and how we can start to be more critical of it. So as you go out, there's a great Robin Williams skit that was on a tape called "Reality, What a Concept" that my parents got for one of our road trips when I was young in elementary school. And there was one improv scene that Robin Williams did. He's just like going crazy, and he starts talking about the city is on fire, and he runs in and goes, "Father, the world's on fire." And the dad goes, "No, son, look at the news. Everything's fine." And that was kind of a reoccurring thing in my family growing up. Like, it's raining. No, it's not. Look at the news. The news says it's sunny. You got to go outside sometimes and feel what the weather's like. And so that's the second part of what I wanted to share today, was that part of the equation of being critical of any sort of messaging and any sort of information that is told to you through a filter of a human being or a corporation needs to be vetted, and we need to start to learn to trust the voices, the insight, the less concrete and less crisp information that we are exposed to or that we experience. And it is easier if someone on the news says, "This is bad, this is good, the world is black and white, and these are the bad guys." It's like, okay, that's crisp lines. I like that. That makes sense. And sometimes internally, we might have a vague sense that we should be going this direction, or a vague sense that this guy is not trustworthy. And it's very difficult to trust these kind of vague feelings when there's so many things in the world that are saying, "This is good, this is bad, this will cure your problems, this will make you popular and attractive, this is good." And you go, wow, everything's so clear, and I have these vague, kind of fuzzy feelings of what's right or wrong inside me. I'm going to trust the black and white. I'm going to vote for the home team. I'm going to vote for the guy who's the smart one and not the idiot. But that trusting or being aware of the vague sense of what you should be doing, or at the very least, being not so attached to the messaging of what is that you can see opportunities outside of that. And I'll try to explain what I mean by that. I was interviewed last week by a very impressive young woman who is just graduating college, and she wanted to kind of interview a bunch of people that had worked in creative fields and kind of understand the path of their careers and the kind of things that she should be aware of, or maybe some advice. And as I told many aspects of my story and the critical junctures and the critical decision points in my life and career, almost all of them were situations where I recognized some option that was not part of my plan, not part of anything I'd been taught, not part of anything that logic would have said I should do, but I recognized an opportunity or possibility that just seemed interesting. And rather than discard it as not part of the plan, I explored it. And it was always those choices of going, I hadn't thought about that, but that seems interesting. Following a connection that I felt to some path or some project or some idea or some hobby, many of which the news and my teachers and my stories of our culture would say would have shushed away. I shared I shared this picture. This is when I was, her name is Hannah, and as she was interviewing me and she was taking notes, she was taking these really cool notes, and this is what a page of the notes looked like. And I want to read a couple of the little notes that she included that I thought were really, really cool. If I can find it. Let's see. Maybe not. I wrote, life is not linear was one of the things that I said. So many of the things, that my path to where I am now had all sorts of side steps or back steps. When I was younger, I was trained and believed that you get good grades here, get good grades there, get a good job here, get a better job there, get a good job here, just keep up. But all the good stuff I got was when I took a chance and took a risk and tried something that was not proven, was not the status quo path, and instead was something that just called to me. And one of the things that as I was talking to her that just came up over and over again was the idea that no matter what you're doing in business, that the person on the other side of the table, whether that is a client, a designer, a programmer, a business person, a sales guy, a client, anytime you're doing any sort of business, the person on the other side of the conversation is a person. And so taking a step back from whatever strategy or kind of manipulation that you have been trained to try to get that person to do what you want, any sort of kind of, because I think that often we get in that. That's one reason why I was so anti the concept of sales, because it felt like sales is the process of trying to convince somebody to do something, to try to almost like trick them, because that's what so much of marketing has become. But sales can be the process of helping people and problem solving. If someone is trying to get across a river and you rent your boat out, your process of sales is simply going, hey, I have a solution to your problem. And then the other part of it is understanding that the person is on the other side of the table. So trying to recognize that we are both people. How can we create a situation, whether it is through thinking about it through gifting, or whether thinking about it just, how can I be a person that this other person enjoys being around? How can I be a good listener? How can I be joyful How can I be encouraging? Because at the end of the day, this guy needs a boat. At the end of the day, even if there's 10 people that have boats, he's got to choose one. And one thing he's going to think about is who's got the best boat. But as long as your boat gets across the river, he might just want to hang out with somebody who's fun to hang out with. And so if you can work on yourself and being a joyful, positive, good listener, encouraging, supportive, dependable person, that is a huge part of success in any career that you might choose. So I'm not sure how that's related to the first part of this, but I guess it was about I was never taught growing up the importance of interpersonal relationships in business. And everything I've learned through every job that I've been in is that being likable and being friendly and being dependable is the most important part of any project. I think in many situations, maybe not all, but in many situations, people would much rather work with a dependable, likable person who does a pretty good job than a total a-hole who is the best at what they do. My dad used to say, you know, if you are the best in the world, then you can be a total a-hole. Otherwise, you better be nice. Anyway, so don't trust the news, trust your gut, and remember that everything is about people, including news. There is no news robot who takes information and goes, this is absolute truth, it cannot be corrupted. All news is a series of facts or not facts that are woven into a story. And as you know, stories can be told in many different ways. Jaws could be a beach romance if it was told a little bit differently, if it was focused on different characters. But the important thing is just to be critical, I guess. And know that true experience, personal experience, is the only thing that it can be trusted, I guess. Even people that I love and know and trust, I still have to think in my head, I trust them. I believe that they are telling me something that they believe is true. But what's the source of that information for them? And what's the source of that source? And what's the agenda of the person that posted that in the first place? And so I trust you. I just don't trust your information. There's a Ronald Reagan quote like, trust but verify. All right. Whether you trust me or not, I think you should verify and do what feels right to you. So let's have ourselves a hug. Grab yourself by the shoulders. Squeeze that body. And as we do this, we remember the original intention of HugNation was as a counter message to what we hear in the news so often about all the bad stuff out there and all the bad people out there, and how the story of fear and the story of evil forces against you, and how this media-based fear creates a feeling of us versus them, and creates a feeling where we want to give up our freedoms for safety, and where we want to trust organizations to do what we think is best for us because there's so many bad people out there trying to take advantage of us. When I would say any sort of big organization needs to be questioned, and any individual we should give the benefit of the doubt. So no matter what you hear on the news, there are far more people that would rather hug you than hurt you. And being open to an individual, to be a good listener, to be understanding of what might be somebody else's motivation. Somebody might be filled with anger and hurt because of some manipulated information that they've been fed. And so we recognize that our job is to be understanding, to forgive others, and to forgive ourselves. And recognize we're all doing the best we can with what we've got in that moment. And the best we can do just changes every moment. And so what we did yesterday, we can probably do a little better today. Or maybe we were just overwhelmed and we just can't quite, all we got to do is survive today. And know that sometimes we're in survival mode, and sometimes maybe we didn't get that can to the recycling because we were doing all we could just to make it through the day. And sometimes when we put on our judging hat and we're getting ready to condemn someone else, know that maybe they're in survival mode too, and maybe they could use a break. And maybe it is that forgiveness and that love that will open up their heart, that will relieve the tension in their lives, that will help them get out of survival mode to be more loving, more giving people in the world. And so let's be those forces of forgiveness, those forces of love for ourselves and for everyone around us. Let's take 3 breaths together. Just let that love inside us just pulse and grow in through the nose. On behalf of Grandpa Caleb and all the love warriors, happy Hug Nation. Thank you. I love you. Namaste.